All right, I'm testing the mic here. Seems like a couple things are broken. Okay, testing, testing. Okay, testing, testing. It should be higher than that. Okay, testing, testing. It should be higher than that. All right, let me see. Um, if I can tweak it here a little bit. Seems like I can't. Oh, it seems like a double mic. Oh, it seems like a double mic. Let me delete this. Hello? Testing? Hello? Testing? Is that better? Is that better? Is it this mic? Is it this mic? Well, I mean, that's good to know. It was two mics. Now I have one. Well, I mean, that's good to know. It was. Let me click this mic on so it's closer. It's a little bit better. All right, so I'll just mute my. I'm watching the stream here just to test the mic and set my setup basically because I haven't streamed in a while. So what I'm gonna do now is fix my camera. For some reason, it's not working. Defaults. Seems like that's not working now. Let me create a new one. A video webcam. I'm configuring my shit. Hold on. Well, it's not that one. It's this one. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. It's like it's not. Maybe I'll turn it off, turn it back on. Let me see. Oh, it's hot. Whew. Okay. Delete that. It's not picking it up for some reason. At all. Well, my webcam works, but I'm not really set up for that. You know what? Oh, there it is. Why didn't it work before? I guess I'll use the preset. This is high definition. I'll go medium. Or should I go low? I don't know. It's just like, I guess it has to go high, otherwise it's not gonna work. Let's use buffering. I don't know any of these settings. I gotta like read up on this, but I'm just gonna put on buffering, and that's just how it is. This is how it looks. Where am I on the code? And I think I had it like this. So dumb. I'm just gonna like put it like this. Hey, that's the cam right there. Good enough. Yeah, you see, like the camera's back here. My stream setup is right here. My work monitor is right here. So you'll be seeing my work monitor, and then I'll probably be looking at this screen half the time. And just bear in mind while bear with me while I set this up a little bit. Let me just copy it and paste it. I guess I got to like add it. Let me just delete the old cam settings. The problem with this stuff is like, man, I should have done this earlier, but so you got to test live. Good thing I'm not like high production value or anything like that. It's kind of so like that's my stream right there. I have it muted. I'm gonna add a mic, not a mic, cam. You have to like style it again. What if I just delete it? Oh my God. How do I save this? Copy. Huh. Paste. Okay. And paste. All right, so here's my screens. I got the browser, which is the reverse of this. As you can see, like the tabs are right there behind it. And then I have this screen, which is my secondary screen on the right. And I have I'll just have my agent's browser / terminal windows open. But I usually use this screen for like research and talking to like an agent about shit. I'll show you how I do that. And the other screen I mainly use for work, for writing code. And I have another terminal here, but it's not going to show up on this page. Like you won't see the other terminal, but I have like a panel style terminal that comes out on the hotkey. And yeah, that's mainly what I do when I'm working with code. I want to restrict it down to like one monitor at some point and just use terminal windows to like have multiple sessions, or at least like multiple containers. So eventually I'll get to that point, but the point of this video or stream, I'm just too lazy to record. But yeah, the point of that is, let me just adjust my cam a little bit to hide the green screen. That even matters, but whatever. It also hides my hairline. Anyway, yeah, the point is to create a workflow, or I guess improve a workflow or document a workflow for product dev using like various tools and libraries that are kind of up and coming, or not well documented, or not widely used. So there's like not a lot of modules you can put in to like build like 90% of your features and then basically polish, which is obviously 90% is like 100%, but you know what I'm talking about. I mean, the 10% at the end of the 90% is still 100% of work, but at least it's faster in a sense where like you're not building the systems behind those frameworks and platform workflows, whatever. So that's kind of what I'm getting to, is like with AI now, and basically it pumping out like thousands of lines of code in a matter of minutes. It's come to a point where like you can't possibly review or understand that code in the same span of time that it does to generate it. So that's where like black boxing a lot of features or platforms or frameworks is kind of a detriment now, because you have no control to go in there and like modify things easily. You're kind of like locked into like a specific way of doing things, where in reality it may be way easier to do something very specific to your use case using like a lower level set of tools. And with AI now, that's, I think, a much better and easier approach than using a massive framework that does so many things, but you only need like maybe a few things in there, and you have to like navigate that kind of like layer, and in reality there's like multiple layers, right, to do something custom or something that's specific to your needs. So that's basically the point of this video, is to show you what I'm kind of working on. And this is still like in the spike phase, I would say, like an early stage alpha development of a specific part of like a much bigger system that I'm trying to explain here. But this is more like a sculpt here, and a zoomed in part of it, and this is a template, a monorepo template that allows for basically supports multiple language package management, orchestration, etc. So you're basically creating a layer over like multiple different stacks and or language tool chains, and you're controlling them from like a central CLI. So you're using one CLI to do all of this, and you're kind of like abstracting a lot of that maintenance overhead, and you're also giving the AI agent more opportunities to, you know, like use different sets of tools for different things, which are like, because some sets of tools or stacks are way better at things than others. Like if you want like a static website, you really need just like Markdown parser or something that's very fast on the back end, you know, static HTML, CSS, and Go is really good at. There's other like languages that are good at that as well, but like I think Go is probably the best for things like that, especially if you're building like a very robust architecture that should support like multiple user sessions, like something like an e-commerce site, which is a very good example for this, which really needs like a lot of static site generation, so you can for SEO purposes. So like you're producing static HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and the web crawlers only really care about the HTML and getting the content from there, and they use like XML for mapping the content and stuff like that. But that's harder to do with like a single page app built in JavaScript, like for example, like React. Although now there's like tools to help out with that, but there's like so many different varieties of tools for that to do one thing that, and which is kind of like a hacky way of getting around an issue. So like, why bother and just create like something very like basic or to the conditions for that are prime for like an e-commerce platform, website, whatever. So like the question is like, okay, yeah, you can do that, but like it's not practical to have like different stacks, different tech stacks, different code bases, sources for like all of these different things. Traditionally, yes, that was difficult, but like now with like these emergent tools and like monorepo patterns, and then basically combining multiple monorepo sources to like create like an entire system and infrastructure for like deploying and sharing resources and registries and things like that, data. So and not having like a central point of failure in that setup as well. You know what I mean? It's like you're not actually deploying all of that code onto like one server, into one container. You're actually splitting that up. You're load balancing certain aspects of it, and like or you can choose to like load balance just initially, and like, yeah, like realistically what you should do is deploy everything on a single server and scale it up. But if you're like a one-man operation, but eventually you're like, let's say you start getting a lot of traffic, and this is a good problem to have, you'll have to start scaling your server. So if you only have like one server, one dedicated server, it's not split, or it's not like you know, it's not like routing traffic to different parts of the server or different partitions of it, then you're gonna have like you're gonna have a hard time scaling that, you know, because like if that one server goes down, then everything goes down, and you have like no backup or anything. So you can't do that long term. But and that's where like all of these platforms come in, like Netlify, AWS. Well, AWS is a bad example, but like let's say Netlify, Vercel, things like that, like which are like built on top of infrastructure like AWS or like Google. But they're still all cloud-based, but they're handling like load balancing and cleanup and server maintenance overhead. All of that is being handled abstracted, so you don't care about it. All you care about is that your DNS works, your site's in like a repo, and that's it. So that's cool, but think about how closed off those systems are and how unreliable they can be, especially if like you're basically depending on people to manage things on their side, to secure things on their side. So like there's so many vectors that can still, you know, mess you up if you're not careful. Especially with AI now, like running a lot of like hacks and stuff, or trying things. So I think the more like understanding and overview or control that you have of all of these systems, and they're going to be like split up, obviously, but all these systems working together, if you like can connect them, can partition them, can control them like as modules, and basically see them and what do you call it? Sorry, I'm just checking my checking my settings here. So like you can basically see the whole system as like an architect would, and you can actually zoom in into parts of it and go low level if you wanted to. So like imagine a workflow like that, right? But split up on a small team. So that's kind of what like I'm trying to solve or trying to figure out here, because um, a scalable system like that will eventually involve like so many different systems kind of like integrating together, and different servers talking to each other, like different sets of resources and tools and everything. So like there's no easy way to see all that in one place, or look at it from like a perspective of like a file system or like a modular uh, library, code library. Um, and yes, there is like there are things that kind of like working towards that, but they're like all like fragmented out. So like AWS is like one aspect of it, like say like social media, ad management, like YouTube, stuff like that. That's like another big marketing aspect of it, right? And that's also like separate into blocks. Then you have like GitHub, like servers, all these cloud tools, all these AI tools. There's like, these are all different platforms, and that form like systems and stacks that people use in different ways. Um, there's no like real good way to have control over that without basically making that a huge part of your time. Like a huge chunk of your time would be um, dedicated to maintaining those systems, and like oftentimes you'll have to like connect different apps together through different URLs, and like you have like something on this screen, something on this screen, then you have like this, you have all these tabs open, right? So like how unbearable is that, right? Because like you have to keep all of that in your head. um, and it's very hard for AI to actually contextualize all of that, because all of those fragments are scattered, and you'd have to like fill the gaps by connecting a bunch of servers, like MCP servers, tools, like apps, like um, and like not all of those are accessible. Like for example, like no, not all of those integrate so well. Like for example, like um, ChatGPT has like a lot of cool apps and tools and features there, right? Like custom GPTs, like projects with like a bunch of context windows and sources, right? Like previous chat history that they can pull from to like contextualize things in different ways. Like, and then like it has like its own agent mode, which I'm going to show you, right? It has like its own like way of crafting documents, like reading documents, creating images. So like imagine all of those tools, right? But they're like, how do you get those through ChatGPT without just having it in the browser? And that's like one of your portals to AI resources or AI tools, and it becomes part of your workflow, but it's like all disconnected. So you have to like feed it back into your source, into your editor, into your own personal workspace, and then like let's say you have something in another agent. How do those connect? And then like there's a lot of solutions like out there now that do this, like Open Router, for example. Then there's like another variation of that. There's like Droid. There's like some kind of plugin that shares context between like all these different sessions and states. Then there's Claudebot that kind of like try to release an entire workflow that kind of like loops and stays persistent through memory, which didn't really work out that well, to be honest, but I'm sure it's like it's going to get better. And then there's like a bunch of other variations of that, but nothing really for low-level tooling and interfacing with frameworks and open source libraries um, and packages, that are kind of like it's like the difference of having like a big garage with like you have to go in there and like find some kind of piece of tool, or like something that's like right on your belt at the time, and you just pick it up and use it for whatever it is you're doing at the time, if that makes sense. So like obviously you can't have like one universal workflow for a bunch of use cases, but you can create like a set or a set of like core primitives that you can templatize um, for like similar workflows, and then like expand on them. And in a way, this template, this monorepo template that kind of like puts all these tool chains together and orchestrates them in under one CLI is like a very tiny first step. but like it's still a small piece of the puzzle of what it is that I'm trying to get to here, or that I'm talking about. Let me see if it seems like my thing is like, I gotta restart my capture mode. Okay, there we go. So that works. And let me see the browser. There. Okay, so okay, and this, let me restart this too. Yeah. Okay, so let me restart that. Agent browser. Okay. And terminal. There we go. So I just want to see that this works. All right, so a little bit about this. I gotta find a better spot for this controller. Let me see. Maybe if I lift this a little bit, I can get to it. Yeah, that's better. So I'll do that. So, and I can just like switch my scenes. I gotta hotkey my scenes. And my webcam died. Not good. All right, well, webcam aside, yeah, I guess I don't have enough resources to run these streaming systems anymore. I have to clean up some of my cache and some of my storage, and I'm definitely like out of space because I have like a bunch of videos I recorded and I had to store because I had like no storage devices left, or some old ones I couldn't find, and yeah, so I gotta figure that out. It's just such as life, right? Anyway, so this window here is my AI, my AI screen, right? Or my agent workflow screen that's like on the browser, which I was talking about. So like, how do we bring something like this, right? These separate states or sessions together into like a single system or unified system that you can like kind of isolate and containerize, and like you can work on different modules, or like at the same time, like two different teams can work on separate modules. And these modules that I'm talking about, they're not like small like components or anything. Like think higher scale. Yes, it essentially is a component, but like it's like a big piece. Like for example, like the engine has like a bunch of smaller components, but like the engine is like kind of like a system or part of a system. So like that's essentially what I'm talking about. Like you'll have a separation of concerns, but like on a big scale, like a warehouse or like a series of warehouses, and within those warehouses you have like different storage units and rows and libraries, and then like on those shelves, like different shelves, and then like in those shelves there'll be like containers of different sizes. Within those containers, like different containers. If you know, that's basically how this whole thing functions. And the more like local all of that is, or at least like a mapping of it, or like a system, right? That the AI can interface with, or understand, or see, or interact with, like, or even like affect parts of, as like sub agents, for example. The more you can do with these sessions. So the idea is to kind of like centralize a dev work environment for like multiple workflows, multiple teams, and interface AI and share context and sessions with like multiple different platforms from like a central place with like a central tool or a central set of tools. like you'll obviously have like different different apps running on subdomains or like subhosts or like different ports, right? So you'll have like a separate app for one specific module, like and that would be like a whole monorepo, or that could even be like a series of monorepos, right? And so it's like what you're doing is like instead of recreating the same sets of resources or the same sets of patterns over and over, like let's think about like you're writing code, but on like you're writing like website pages, but like on those pages you have like common repeating patterns. So like you would like create those into layout shells. So like you don't have to reload that all the time. You just load it once, and then like you're just loading smaller pieces of it. It's like that, but like on a much more complex scale. And you have AI interfacing with that. You'll have AI kind of like specialize in different sets of those modules, system modules, and you'll have like a layer where there's orchestration going on, and then like the different owners of these modular systems are kind of like streaming data between nodes through like through like multiple layers, and yeah, as you can see, that's kind of where software development is kind of going, because as you're automating, as you're producing more code, you need a way to manage it on a higher level where you're not concerned with like a specific folder in like some kind of package inside a monorepo, right? Now you're concerned with like you're taking ownership of an entire monorepo, for example, to start with, or like a set of monorepos, and like it's your job to kind of like create integration layers and management layers and orchestration layers that do this securely and in a way that like you can like load balance and not overload and not have like central points of failures, but you're also having a way to like manage it and version control stuff. So you're creating safety nets, and you're creating like kind of like security, not in the sense of like the software, but also in like the people that are managing the software. So like you're creating a net for them to like maintain and control. So like if every part of the system is like it becomes like a well-oiled machine, and there's like obviously that's not going to be the case, but with like sets of rules and opinions and like kind of like workflows that everybody's following, guided by AI, guided by these orchestration layers and automation layers, then at some point you're gonna get to a point where like you're not coding like lines of code, you're coding entire modules, or you're coding like entire systems, parts of systems with like high level syntax that kind of like orchestrate all this in the background, and that can come in several ways, right? There could be like a grid of architects that kind of like handle all this. So like let's say like one architect handles like a big chunk of the system, right? And like obviously they're not going to be able to orchestrate that agentically, at least not yet, but with agentic help you can like document all of this, you can prepare specs, and you can like create tickets, and you can like create a whole dispatch of like tickets and concerns to like smaller teams within that system, right? So like in a way you're coding with code, but like a lot of it's automated, and then like you're distributing that work, and like you're creating a lot of like the boilerplate for it because it's already like kind of baked in, it's already figured out. So so like you're kind of again coding on a high level. It's crazy if you think about it, but that's kind of like where things have to be going at this point. Otherwise, like what we have now in terms of software development, yes, everyone's faster, but there's so many crazy bottlenecks that are like almost impossible to do anything about. So you're most of the time you're just like waiting around, or like you're waiting for things to happen, and like somebody else is waiting for things to happen. So like there's so many bottlenecks like that because this is like an entire new paradigm of technology propagation and creation and interfacing and networking that basically like is breaking the system and like or the layers that it's built on, because the principles and the methods that it was built on was designed for humans and not for like actual um, like agents that are doing all of this work in such a faster time frame. So there's definitely going to be a need for people working at low levels, but what you're basically getting for free out of AI is like you are speccing this work for like all of these smaller teams in like great detail, which wasn't possible before because it would delay the project. And like although the recommended approach is always like plan before you start writing code, like think about all of this, like get all the recommendations, uh, plan it all out, wireframes, and then like you obviously can't do that on like a small time frame where you have to launch, you have to get to market quick. So now you're basically creating prototypes out of thin air, and there's no real systems behind them. There's like just a bunch of mess, because that system worked well when you had humans building, but like when you have AI agents building, it's just a mess because it's not secure enough, and there's no way anybody can review that code or maintain it. So you need a system behind the slop that kind of like controls it or isolates it and abstracts it away. So like you can basically designate or delegate like a swarm of engineers supported by agents to like kind of like maintain it in real time. And these asset pipelines, these registries, like they're all kind of like networked together, and you can reuse them as resources for like completely different projects. Like for example, like completely separate domains can share the same resources. Now, as far as the legal aspects of that, like let's say the same like two clients pay for like a similar type of module set of features. Technically, they paid for the code, they own the code, but like what if that resource is shared by both of them? That's the question, right? Like how does that get solved? How do you deal with those legal consequences? Even right now, like nobody's really um, sure of like whether AI itself is legal, because basically all it's doing is copying a lot of code. And like a lot of code is publicly out there. A lot of code has MIT licenses from just clones of various projects, right? So you got to be very careful about which ones you use because of the licensing issues. So you always got to like pick one with good licensing. You have to make sure that that actual project is legit. There's no like security issues with it. There are so many different things you can like, like dive into with that. But again, that's a concern for like a new age where like, yes, all this code is like basically in a library, kind of like accessed by um, AI agents, and like these agents are basically centralized in a way, or like kind of black boxed from the open source community, but it kind of like runs and depends on open source, which is kind of twisted in a way. So yeah, like that's where the issue comes in. Like as you're trying to save these resources, if you're trying to like patternize these resources and modularize these resources for AI to better contextualize your prompts and your specs and your requests and your feature requests, all that requirements into like tangible results that are like backed by actual solid patterns that have been tested and are in use, can be like split up, version controlled, even like cloned, but still like streaming from the same source, things like that. Like all of that saves a lot of resources, but it also creates a lot of legal questions, like I mentioned before. And like imagine that on like a more massive scale. I think, as I said before, like this new technology is going to shake things up a lot, and like the systems that it's kind of like running on right now are not built for that. So in a way, I'm trying to create like systemic workflow layers for these to solve some of these problems. But realistically, I don't think I don't think it's possible. It's just one person. You'd need basically a domain experts that can communicate with each other and understand the big picture of how these systems kind of like work, and how can they be basically version controlled or monitored, or like registered, so like you can take pieces out of it and like modify pieces out of it without breaking the whole thing, and like and also split testing it, split loading it, all of that, and like containerizing it like as a clone of like an artifact almost, and like with profiles attached, so like two different domains or two different tenants or clients can share the same set of resources, and all of that is kind of like distributed and controlled, and interfaced with AI. As far as like, again, is that something you want? Do you want like a more decentralized black boxed approach, or like, or do you want like a more open source, kind of like a localized map of, I guess like a big network? Like imagine like a massive city with blocks and districts and all of that, or like states. He'll probably better look at it like as a continent with a bunch of countries and states and counties and all that. So where obviously like parts of that has borders and controls and everything. So like in a way it's like that, but with agents. And yeah, eventually you're gonna run into a lot of problems. But also a lot of good things can happen. And for me, the cool thing is like working on solutions like this. At least I find it fun, because I'm mainly, it's like I'm building like a layer on top of the internet or the entire network, and that global network, right? For my own needs. So like I can like personalize or customize different layers of tools, or workflows on top of what already exists, instead of like building it from scratch. Like I'm not building an entire OS. I'm using the tools and the platforms that are already there and building on top of them for my needs to like automate a lot of my workload, a lot of my labor. So like I can do the things that I couldn't really do before, because I was like, coding like a very small module that's going to be part of something that's more feasible or more scalable for my direct needs. But now I can actually like, if you're talking from like a purely a business perspective, like I can localize my workflow and my resources, all of my knowledge into like transferable systems and services. So like you can basically build SaaS platforms very quickly and like very custom fit for like a specific client's needs, whatever it is they need, like internally to solve their business problems. Like for example, like one problem is like a local, let's say like a local business or enterprise is setting up bids for like fixing stuff, right? For like construction, and like these are two unrelated domains or organizations, kind of like two different systems, kind of like networking and interface together through AI to do that. So like initially, how would people solve it? Like, oh, they look at Yelp, or they have like a specific list of bids from different construction companies to like work on some projects, so like they would compete. So like now you have like a more equalized plane where like, yes, you have your initial set of bidders, but you also have like an entire network of them, and they're all like local, and now you have like variable pricing. Now you can actually have something more in tune of like a freer market in a way. So like you're creating competition, and you're creating variance, and you're lowering prices, but you're also speeding up results and output, specifically on a digital level. Obviously, it'll still take time to like create construction, but like, what if, for example, the way you manage the project also matters? So like, what if you go to the construction companies, or like the layer that handles the bidding for the construction? So like, now you build a system for them, right? Like, we're like, hey, how do you guys, like, for example, like, let's say one construction crew has like the best people that do concrete work and like foundational work, but they really suck at other stuff. So like, that's their primary point of failure in their businesses. So like, they should specialize in whatever they're good at, right? So like, they still have their own business, they're still making money, but now you're optimized because you're connecting two separate identities, two separate businesses together, because you found another construction group that is like perfect at detailing, or like laying out like wiring and all that, or like roofing, for example. So now like, you have like these specialized companies kind of like pivoting in their own way through this controlled network and system that's kind of like layered, where yes, it's more competitive, but it's also like, you're able to work faster and more efficiently, and you're producing better results, you're saving more resources. So like, obviously there's like balances there, but like, I think in a way this can lead potentially to like eliminating a lot of like negative aspects of like these current systems that we have, again, outdated systems, where like, you have a specific set of companies that get to compete while everybody else is kind of like locked out, and they're not given the opportunity because they don't have any like reach, or nobody knows about them. But obviously there's proof of work layers that can be implemented to find an inexperienced crew, but a really good crew based on the work that they do, you know what I mean? And then that opens up a lot of room for market disruption, but in a good way, in a very like free market way, like what was intended when all of this kind of like started on a very like lower primitive level, where technology didn't like rapidly spiral it out of control in a way, and kind of like introduced layers, corrupt layers, but layers nonetheless that are kind of like in a way necessary for things to operate, but oftentimes not in a good way. So like if you introduce like a more robust and dynamic system like the one I'm talking about, right, you have the opportunity to like actually fix those problems that currently like kind of like weren't really fixable. Where, for example, like, oh, the guy at whatever like point C or whatever, like, we have to pay him this much, because otherwise like these variables, you know what I mean? It's like, but you don't know about like the multitude of other competitive groups out there that are like kind of locked out. So like you're by introducing these systems, you're kind of like creating equilibrium, but there's definitely potential there for some messed up stuff. Like you can't have like, for example, like a system like that can be abused, right? So the question becomes is like, how do you create like layers of protection to prevent corruption, or not really prevent it, but like dissuade it, or at least like give incentives to not do those, and do like more positive things that like like create more benefit, more plus. So yeah, but as you see, like it's hard to talk about this stuff without having like a clear understanding of how this is all applicable on like a different layers. Like right now, I'm applying like consciousness streams that are connected to like different ideas in my head, but what I should be focused on is like specifically this little template. So like zooming back in, this little template, right? It's a monorepo. It's you know, it has like different tool chains. Let me show you. I guess this is a good entry point, like the lowest, one of the lower levels here. So this is like a tool chain management tool. You're basically pinning versions. So like basically you would have this like in like different config files for different package managers, like for example here, right? And here, all of that. So like now you're kind of like centralizing it, but like the idea is like how do you contain that even more? How do you abstract that even more? Like this is a good example, right? All of these outputs are basically what can produce another management layer for all these configs to like help orchestrate and version control them. This stream was supposed to be about that, but I guess I kind of trailed off and tried to explain like a bigger picture, a bigger concern that I was thinking about as I was building this. So like, yeah, it's the goal, I guess, for me is, oh, I'm back in video, huh? The goal for me, at least, is to templatize a lot of this stuff. So like, I don't have to think about it on like such a deep level all the time. So like, the minute you can abstract a system away, right, into like a pattern, into like a reusable component or module, the less you have to think about it, because you can like reference it on like a higher level. So like all you have to really think about are the concepts, and then like you kind of trust that they work. And in a way, that's how a lot of like languages, coding languages, are built today. So what I'm basically talking about is like a higher set of layers for the existing sets of systems and tools, controlled with agentic AI. So like in a way, you're building a high level language, but on like a lower level, on an abstract level, it's like orchestrating through tools and commands and sub-agent routines, tests. So like all of this is like, a lot of it is automated, but like parts of it are maintained and managed and controlled by different domains, different knowledge domains and teams and things of that nature. So like you're not really, yes, you're causing disruption, you're creating new technology layers and new paradigms and new workflows, but you're not destroying, you're not replacing like the systems that power it. In a way, those are still necessary, and they'll just improve and get better, and you know, be able to do even more with less, and you'll eventually be able to save resources. You can divert those resources elsewhere. You know, now you have surplus, right? So like all of these big companies, what are they going to do with it? A lot of them are just putting it back into the market to like perpetuate it, but is that really what the nation needs, what the world needs? Who knows? Like, right? A lot of people complain like, oh, that's not what we need. We need this, we need this. So like, how do you alleviate those concerns? How do you address those concerns without, you know, breaking somebody's like livelihood or destroying somebody's, you know, like empire in a way? Because I think that's where a lot of contention is, right? So like the idea is you integrate with it. So like you're basically modularizing empirical systems together, where they are in competition, but they're also connected and kind of like trading information or streams of data and services. So like you're creating a market and a trade route on like a digital scale and like a much faster scale. And like eventually like companies that have like big digital profiles, like basically they can't function without those systems, right? Like a whole distribution system, like management, data, all of that. That's like a big part of the business. Like without that, the business wouldn't be able to scale, right? So like in a way, you're connecting digital with physical, and then like all of these layers are kind of um, like the roots of a tree, like and the branches of a tree in a way. And then like there's like the line that like connects the two, and that would be like the interface, um, like what the developers are doing, um, or architects are doing. So like you are in a way with agentic AI kind of building a better system, um, improving on a lot of things that are currently broken or not working as well as they should. And to be able to do that, you need these tools to be as unrestrictive um, and affordable as possible. But also, like, there needs to be like layers of obviously controls. And the way to do that productively, instead of like gatekeeping a lot of competition out, which is being done right now, is by um, making teams smaller and giving ownership to people of different aspects of these systems, right? Um, and inside a system, what I'm talking about, like it's like basically a module, like a point, but within that point, if like you zoom in, there could be an entire environment. You know what I mean? It's like you you have like multiple teams that work or competing for the same things, and they're working. Some of them work together, some of them specialize. So it becomes like the same scenario with the construction teams, right? That I mentioned before. You're optimizing those workflows. You're integrating them, and best of all, you're recycling, right? You're not just throwing people away that may have specialized in something for a very long time and they have that knowledge and skill, um, and that information might be necessary or crucial for a lot of big parts of these systems that a lot of people just aren't seeing, because they're either not paying attention, or there's too much stuff that they're looking at, or I don't know, like there could be just like a fat bottleneck middleman layer that doesn't do shit, just collects money, so like, and disrupts the system if you try to like bypass it or remove it. So like that's a lot of that's a lot of details there that has to be figured out, has to be addressed for this new technology to get to the next level, and for um, for a lot of people not to suffer from it, because there's a lot of concerns, right? People getting fired, people getting replaced, um, people hiring cheaper labor, cheaper engineers, cutting corners, not really thinking about sustainability, saving resources, like a lot of overspending, a lot of surplus, all of that. A lot of like hoarding of resources too that are like not really being utilized properly, So like all these things, I think, should be discussed openly. And with AI now, I think a lot of people will be, dedicating parts of their time for solving those through like a business layer, like either consultant level or creating a business or service. And in a way, you have to network or connect these people in some form or another with these contextual AI layers, with all of these tools, services, platforms. So it all becomes more utilitarian, in a way, if that's a good way. It's like feeding electricity through a wire, kind of. But like right now, you're feeding resources and knowledge and skills through like a way, through a controlled manner. So like all you're basically doing is you're interfacing with some kind of godlike expert that can do everything, and you're saying, "Hey, I really want to like I really want to do this, like blah blah blah," and then like it'll basically um, put all that into a plan and execute. Um, and that'll involve like so many different layers, so many different people, even like different countries, you know, depending on the level you're talking about. Um, so yeah, differently exciting and interesting prospects and what do you call it, opportunities. So I don't think people should get discouraged. People should take the time to specialize, but also understand how your skills or your set of knowledge or skills or tools or whatever it is you want to call it, right? Your domain. How does that integrate or interface with different domains? So like start thinking about stuff like that. Start writing it down. You know, start even like doing it on a small scale. Like go find like a business that's, you know, that fits like a need that interfaces or interconnects with your business, and you know try to network, you know, try to work together. um, I think that's very healthy, you know, so you're not like so you're not creating vaporware that is kind of like isolated um, and just exists for the, whatever, for GDP purposes or whatever the fuck. I don't know what the fuck, but like you know what I'm talking about. But like it's actual stuff that impacts a lot of people in a lot of good ways, you know, and it stimulates local economies. It stimulates competition. It stimulates people to, you know, improve their skills, improve their knowledge, improve and even you know get more money, get more resources for it. You know, um, basically it's a new set of it's like uh, it's like an industrial revolution, but like it's not really there yet. You know, at some point, like what happened with the industrial revolution, or what did it create? It created like a bunch of factories, but that process took time, right? So like I remember what happened during those times. A lot of unrest, a lot of conflict, a lot of competing monopolies and dynasties, kind of like um, affecting a lot of people, right? A good example would be like the revolutions of Europe, right? During the like the communist revolution, for example, in Russia, right? During World War II times or pre-World War II times, like World War I, World War II, where tech was really like ramping up, or at least like, you know, the engine, electricity, all that, radio. So like in a way, it's kind of like that now, but like on a early stage of it, where like internet, phones, like computers, GPS, all of that. Um, you know, like lithium batteries, now AI, you know, like blockchain, all of these different ideas and tech and possibilities are only possible because of all these innovations with semiconductors and microchips. They're like being smaller, so you can pack a lot more information into it, right? And like power grids are getting stronger, bigger. Now these massive data centers are coming out. So like um, all of that um, obviously is creating a lot of tension, disruption, and destroying a lot of livelihoods and making people feel obsolete or unwanted. And that kind of leads to a lot of bad energy, you know. So you see a lot of like cycles kind of like forming up or coming back, where like, you know, how they say humanity doesn't learn from their mistakes, doesn't learn from history. In a lot of ways is because they're kind of disconnected from those events. They don't understand them on a personal, deeper level. It's not like something that happened in the past, like during pre-industrial times or industrial revolution times. When you read about it, you don't really care. You can even read the primary sources, right? Like the actual diaries of people there from there. And even then you don't really care because you're still not feeling what they're feeling. You're not seeing what they're seeing. You're not experiencing it, right? But until like it hits you, right? In reality, we're like, oh, like all of a sudden your job becomes obsolete, right? Because of AI or whatever, right? Or some other reason, like because the economy is bad or a lot of companies run out of business, whatever, right? Gas is expensive, right? So like once you feel it, you're like seeing like, okay, now I know what this X, Y, but you still don't really understand the big picture. You're not seeing the entire system at play. You're not seeing the entire cycle revolving from, you know, from A to B to C to D, whatever, ad infinitum, right? So yeah, I think there's a difference here though, because now you have kind of like opportunity, but also you have a lot of contention and disillusionment and you know, the good and the bad. So you gotta kind of piece it together and kind of understand and try to work with people. And surprisingly, that's been difficult, even though we have, you know, almost instant communications across the globe, right? For some reason, networking and kind of like trading services and knowledge is kind of like restricted or controlled or kind of like inaccessible to a lot of people, mainly because they don't have enough money, they don't have resources, they don't have enough time, right? But also because they don't have those networks, they don't have the connections. They have to like navigate a lot of old systems, old networks to get those opportunities, which aren't like really distributed in an efficient manner or in a logical manner sometimes, whatever it is you want to call it. Like there's a lot of considerations that are kind of like baked in from like ideas in the past that don't really apply to a lot of things that are happening now. And like that's what I meant. Like there needs to be a process or a push for improving these systems, optimizing the systems, and creating more opportunities. And that's kind of like what I am, why I'm so interested in what it is I'm doing right now, because I can see that being like a very small piece of the puzzle or like a cog in the machine, but it can be like a very important core feature that can like drive a lot of innovation and solutions that might not have been possible before, right? Especially with like people that aren't really on the same level as like somebody that's very technical and understands like low level system language where they can actually interface with computer chips and you know, like nodes on a circuit board and then control those operations and like transform that into like code and something that's, you know, readable or something a human can interface with, right? So like now so like those types of people are basically powering the whole core, the whole engine of like modern tech. But what happens when you know, have those people interface with people of different concerns or domains or communities? Even you're kind of like creating you're speeding up evolution in a way, if that makes sense. You're reinforcing a community or like a state or organization, right? Or like a small startup, for example, or like even a business category, right? You're reinforcing, you're giving them like better tools, better systems to like solve their problems specific to their needs on a much faster scale and a much cheaper level, because you have a system that developers can use to like network, right? To like interface with these big systems that already exist instead of rebuilding them over and over again, because that's a very big issue in software engineering and software development. Everybody's like chasing the chasing the dragon of like being the next big framework or library. But what they should be actually doing is building networks on top of networks, on top of platforms, on top of frameworks, right? And interfacing collectively as human beings rather than cogs that, or like business facades in a way. So like, yes, you'll need the business side of it, but you also need like a personal side to make this happen, because you'll need to find people that you can trust and work with, and you know that they have their shit handled. They're not just some guy or some random ass motherfucker that just doesn't really read what he's doing or doesn't really understand what he's doing. He's just like has like a set of patterns, and it generates income for him at some phase, and that's it. That's all that it goes. But like, what at the end of the day, what is it actually doing? What if there's like the whole distribution system is like polluting the ocean, or like fucking up the environment, or like destroying communities somewhere because they have to like ship a bunch of plastic to different places in the process and all that shit, So like, yes, that person makes money, generates a lot of good, but like, is there a payoff, or there's a negative aspect to that that's not really out in the open, that's not really exposed, or not exposed, but more like documented and prioritized, where like it's treated as an issue that needs to be solved rather than something that needs to be eliminated or completely destroyed, right? Because you don't want to do that either, because you'll mess a lot of things up, because a lot of people will want to let go a lot of their businesses, right? So you need to find ways to optimize their businesses to make them more practical, and something that has better outcomes than, because you have to look at different parts of it, right? And whether that's possible or not, I don't know. Like, it's definitely not with today's tech, but hopefully with AI and like a lot of these higher level layers that will be built to interface with AI, I think it'll be possible. But there's a lot of like legal aspects of it that need to be figured out as well. And I think those need to be talked about, because those kind of like lead to business logic and business decisions that people can act on, right? So in a way, you're not only building tools for developers, you're also building tools for other domains and other practices or other services, and you're kind of like interfacing them now. You're not just building APIs for different languages, just like one single language. You're building layers for multiple languages, and you're building layers for higher level workflows and ideas in the physical space that are kind of like interfaced or interconnected through the digital space. So like, you are now building APIs to connect domain level knowledges and help people figure out problems that are affecting millions of people, millions of lives, right? Millions of like a bunch of different countries, right? If you can manage that, if you can help people network and interface and prioritize or specialize, right? Because like a lot of different countries are really good at certain things while other countries are not, right? So like, there's definitely potential there for a market, right? But like, it's going to be a market of data, but the data is like execution. The data is executable code through AI, right? It's not just static data that has to be processed and transformed. It's data that's like almost in a way like alive, but like dynamic, and can be can do a lot of things when you connect it together or interface it in a proper way and with proper parameters. Yeah, at least that's the idea, or that's the grand goal, or the kind of like the drive in a way, where like, you're not just building a template, you're kind of like thinking about how to improve on a system. And unfortunately, that has to start somewhere small, right? You can't just build it from the top down. Nobody's gonna follow those instructions, right? That's not how you do it. You got to do it like organically. Like, you got to have like different businesses working together, and those businesses form like a a collaborative system, and that collaborative system interfaces with another system that kind of like sprang up in its own way and with its own workflows. But those ideas, those concepts, those tangible results are interfaceable. They're connected through like through a language, through a system that can be understood and navigated with the help of AI, and groups of people from different aspects at different times working on different goals, you know? Yeah, a lot of cool stuff to look forward to, in terms of technology, but also in terms of systemically, right? Because a lot of people do complain about the system in their own ways, and it is a deal. It is a big deal. It is a big problem. There's a lot of injustices. There's a lot of discontinuity and different, almost in a way, it's a fragmentation, right? Like, let me put this on over here. So like in a way, it's a fragmentation of knowledge or reality, right? And that's widely, what is the cause of that, right? Some people say social media, right? That's a big part of it. Like technology is a big part of why that is, but it's not the main reason, right? There's a lot of aspects to, you know, fragmented worldviews, which is a big problem today in the early 21st century. And it's kind of like leading to like a World War III scenario, or a lot of predicting, or like market instability, right? Shifting paradigms, cracks in the system, you know, things that was feasible a century ago may not be feasible now. So like, what do you do with that, right? And a lot of people have their own ideas about that, right? Like return to tradition, you know, like push for more progressive things, invest in data centers, you know, like form tighter communities. Like there's so many different solutions, right? But like, how do those solutions, how can they work to the benefit of, let's not jump to say the world, but like say like locally to like a state, like a state level, or like two states, right? Or like a country. How can, like, for example, like the West Coast, like how can you have like all those different groups that might not like each other, or may have different ideas about each other. They may have different solutions that they're currently executing. How do you put those groups inside a network that can benefit both groups in a tangible manner, to kind of like create almost like a you're trading, right? You're trading with another tribe in a way, right? You're not warring with them now. You're trading because both of you see a benefit in coexistence, and you have your own ideas, you have your own differences, you have your own communities, you have your own ways, workflows and systems, but you know, you're not killing each other because of those differences. You're working together to benefit both groups, because now you're interfaced with this, you know, workflow network that uses different tools, different technologies to, you know, where you're optimizing your resources and creating things that other people may not be able to create, but need, you know. So your community grows, their community grows, and it's a healthy relationship, a good thing. And that is all tangible. You can see it, right? You can steer it in a way, you know, and maybe you steer it the wrong way and something breaks, but you have guardrails to kind of like, you know, steer it back gently. So you're not facing the risk of total collapse. You're facing the risk of, oh, this little module here, this module here just needs to, you know, be optimized, be improved, be fixed. You're looking at it on like on a technical engineer level, architecture level, right? and you're able to solve problems using tech in like a very high level. So I think that's going to be the precipice, right, for a lot of new emerging paradigms that will form out of this soup, because that's just the way it is, right? It's been like that since forever, since humanity existed, right? It's like I said, the Industrial Revolution before, it was pretty bloody what happened during those times, and a lot of good things happened too. You had automation, you had factories, you had cars, transportation, supply chains, new industries, all of that. But you had a lot of disruption, chaos, and wars, so that comes, that comes together packaged. And it's something we have to confront and deal with in a logical manner, but also in a way that is humane and empathetic. Otherwise, what's the point, right? What are we, just animals that know how to use tools? Or are we, are we better than that? Are we creating these things and these tools and these new industries and stuff to help people realize their full potential, right? And push the entire planet forward to the future, right? In a way, if you really think about it, DNA, which is like a very primitive system, right, is like, we can interface with it, right, with tools. So in a way, that primitive system is connected and interfacing with a lot of these higher level systems, even like computers. So if you look at computers, right, you're basically, how does that even work, right? Like, electricity is channeled through circuits, and those circuits are controlled, and those those expressions of that systemic expression, right, is math, right? And it's expressed in with various conductive tools and components, and then like you get data out of it, right? And you're manipulating bits of that data and information into a simulated experience, almost like you're simulating an entire an entire network, entire system, like a mirror reflection of your inner DNA in a way, right? Like, it's an expression of that. So you got to look at it like that, like all these little tool chains and languages and layers of software and tech. How does that interface with human ideas and groups and concepts of like communities, groups, countries, corporations, whatever, right? Tribes. Like, all of that is interfaced and interconnected, and kind of like interdependent. You can't have one without the other, right? So if you're looking at AI and you're in a position where you're seeing it as a way to maximize profit and stretch your resources and produce more results, like through the market, for like one specific aspect of, just remember that all of that is not isolated. It's not an isolated, it's all connected to a big system that is strained, is falling apart in a lot of places, and is losing a lot of competent people as people age and not, transfer that knowledge over. So AI is a way for us to save that knowledge, refine it, and create newer, more efficient, better systems that will like eventually deprecate the older systems. And if you look at it from like a ecological point of view, like if you ever found like ruins, right, at a like Rome, for example, right, or wherever, like the pyramids, like all of those are buried underground, right? And all of these systems, all these low-level systems, eventually will be the same way, right? Like yes, you'll interface with them, but they'll be expected to work in a specific way. So you wouldn't be updating those. You'll be maintaining them and making sure that they do what they're supposed to do. And eventually, like they'll be deprecated. They'll be replaced by something more efficient, right? So like all these low-level computer systems will eventually have like higher level languages, and like what needs to happen is you need to distribute that knowledge and the control over those nodes through in an efficient and proper manner. So you have continuity without like one piece breaking the whole thing or disabling a big part of it. So that needs to be acted on soon, I think. Otherwise there's gonna be like a lot of disruption a lot of people aren't ready for. And unfortunately, I think it's better to just put these concepts on paper. So like as I'm talking through this, what I should be doing is going back and writing out a lot of these points out, so I can map it better on like a graph or like a spec sheet or a spec matrix. And once I do that, I think it'll make a lot more sense what I'm talking about, and I can apply that scale to like different variations of systems on different hierarchies, horizontal and vertical. It's actually 3D. It's not 2D what I'm talking about. But you sort of see it, right? The warehouse idea makes sense. Except it's not a warehouse, the warehouse would be like one part of it. Yeah, I think the idea was to get into code and work through things, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm kind of tired. I'm going to end the stream, and I'm going to have to plan. I'm going to plan my stream out so it doesn't become like an entire like monologue like this, which is fun, which is nice, but I don't know if that's something people will find interesting. So I need to script a lot of these things out, or plan out, or like a work routine or something that I'm going to do. And one of the things I'm going to do is work at some time management skills and tools, and I'll probably share that later. So if I can schedule out my time, I can divide my time better. So like I can spend like a few days or a day planning and managing different aspects of these workflow systems that I'm dealing with. That kind of like have me all over the place and kind of like slowing down a lot of my progress. So I think if I can time box a lot of these things or isolate them, I can get more efficient, and I have more time for more downtime as well. So I'm not like working like the full week just on code or just like on one module or one template. I'm actually dividing my time, my domain knowledge for different reasons, and then like all that converges down the line into something bigger than if I would be able to achieve just working on code all day, So that's kind of like what I'm trying to get to. Kind of like what I landed on as I've been going through this year, which has been an interesting year. A lot of stuff going on. a lot of uncertainties, but tech-wise or you know, code-wise, there's a lot to do. You know, I don't have enough time to do it. Basically, I need like some kind of I need to start networking so I can like find a lot of trustworthy people to take ownership of a lot of these things that kind of like work in their advantage too. So, as I mentioned before, some kind of delegation system that allows different organizations with different properties and you know, like completely different realities. What I'm talking about, like, you know, like the worldviews. It's the same thing with companies and organizations. So like completely similar organizations, like different businesses, focused on different things, doing different things, but aligned with the goal of you know, making money, making a profit, and creating products or whatever, right? You basically find people like that are good at something and something you need, and then like you exchange services, capital, whatever, you know, whatever it may be. So I think that's gonna be like my focus for the rest of the year is building out these, finishing up my tools and patterns into like a systemic framework that I can use and basically spawn or clone to, you know, handle different domains, different organizations, and interface them. And I already have like a lot of problems that I'm personally experiencing locally with different businesses and groups and whatever that I am going to A/B test my ideas in real time, you know. And that'll be cool to share, you know, once I, you know, get all this stuff out of my head and on paper into like some kind of logical format that I can follow in a timeline. Then that will be the goal. Anyway, somebody's at the door, so I'm gonna call it. It was a good stream. Hope to be back soon.